Hello, everyone. You are now tuning into Operation PD for First Years, your professional development destination for your first year of teaching in the classroom. Thank you so much to our sponsor, the South Carolina Initiative, serving the needs of the educational community in South Carolina for over 60 years.
This podcast was created by our hosts, Annie Bradley, Wadrian Miller, and Frank Thornton, who will share their personal experiences as they answer questions asked by our listeners on our website at www.pdfirstyearteachers.weebly.com under Connect. Our goal is to provide advice and support first-year teachers or anyone who's interested in pursuing a career as an educator. We hope to encourage aspiring teachers who are passionate about teaching and help improve their first-year experience. Each week, we'll focus on a different topic. In today's episode, we'll be covering the topic of parent communication to help our listeners develop and strengthen their communication skills and foster positive parent-teacher relationships.
All right, everybody. So today, on our first episode, we are going to answer questions about parent communication, which is our topic of today. And in doing so, us as your hosts will be able to give you tips and tricks, as well as some additional advice based on our own personal experiences as first-year teachers and even teachers that we are today. We are going to begin with the question that was asked by somebody on our website that says, how to formulate a phone call home. So that is very important when you're first year teaching, because there is a whole process of getting used to just calling a parent home. It's not as easy as you might think. First and foremost, make sure to have a few important items on hand before making a phone call home. That's such as grades. I always like to have a pen and paper in case I need to jot down any notes. It is also useful to have your calendar open in case a parent asks you to set up a different time to talk on the phone, because they might be busy when you call them, or if they request to come and speak to you in person, because sometimes a parent might be more comfortable in that way. Whenever I'm making a phone call home, especially if it's about a behavior concern or academic progress not being made, I always make sure to start with a positive, pointing out something they've been working hard on, anything positive you've observed in the classroom. For example, if I'm talking about a behavior concern, I might begin with, I just want you to know that so-and-so, he's been working so hard in math. His grades are looking great, but we do need to talk about some behavior concerns. During my first year, I would get very nervous before making a phone call home. So it really is important to make a short list of talking points beforehand. So like I would even literally write, "Hi, I'm Annie Bradley, your child's teacher," because that's how nervous I got. If I'm calling for behavior, always make sure you have concrete evidence of that concern. And if it's about progress not being made academically, I recommend preparing a timeline for goals and improvement so that parent knows that I'm one step ahead of the game. And that way they feel more comfortable with me as their child's parent, and also keeps things in a positive light.
How do you de-escalate when communicating with angry parents? Wow. This is a common question for many first years because as you're navigating the classroom management, there's always going to be in a situation where you may have an irate parent that you have to deal with along the way. So, these are some things to consider. First and foremost, always make sure that you listen very carefully to the complaint and the concerns of the parent. Because, of course, they may have received information that was false, which you may have to rectify. So, always make sure that you thank them and acknowledge that you understand their concerns and that you're listening to them very carefully. And you will follow up on any unanswered questions that may come out of the conversation. That's important because what you want to do in this process is establish trust. Now, it's hard to establish trust when you're getting your head banged in by an irate caller, an irate parent. But you also must remember, you are a professional. And although we're human beings and we receive negative comments that hurt our feelings, you're going to have to be a professional and stand above it and treat those parents with respect, regardless of how irate they may treat you. So remember, even if you're having a difficult time controlling your own emotions, While dealing with multiple complaints of upset parents, it's vital that you remain calm and respectful during these high-stress interactions. This will help you keep the situation under control and hopefully prevent the angry parent from being incensed further. So, during these situations when you may be receiving a barrage of negative feedback, make sure that you breathe and listen. Breathe and listen. Okay? Now, the third thing that you want to do is just be as honest as possible with the parent with regard to their complaint. Say, for example, it is actually something that you had some fault in. It may not be all the fault, but when you recognize and show to the parent that you do err as well as a human, they can understand that. You say, well, parent, I made this error on this particular occasion. I've corrected it and it won't happen again. I'm very sorry that it happened and it had a negative impact on your child. This is how we can move forward in the future. This, I believe, is very important with regards to reestablishing and setting a true baseline with regards to honesty. As long as you're being honest with the parent and transparent, they'll respect that post the conversation. Because after you handle the conversation in a very professional manner, the parent themselves may feel some type of guilt that they treated you very poorly because really you may have been the arbiter of the messenger of information that was negative that happened and came to them. Because sometimes a child may give misinformation to their parent and their parent will interpret those things as their child being picked on or something to that effect. And of course, they're going to protect their child, which can make them very irate, especially if they feel as though it is an instance that's happening multiple times. So, again, in the face of the frustration and the irateness of the parent, make sure you take those deep breaths. And also, make sure keep the communications open. Although the conversation may not have gone the way you wanted to with regards to the profanity or the insults, make sure that when you come to closure with the conversation, that you'll say, hey, I'm sorry that we had this negative interaction this time. I'm hoping that we have a better interaction in the future. And I look forward to serving your child because your child is important to me. Your child's education is important to me. And I want to make sure I'm doing all I can for your child so he or she can be successful.
All right. It's now time for our last question for today's episode. How can communication impact classroom norms? Well, first off, what are classroom norms? Classroom norms are the rules that you follow on a daily basis that are reinforced by teachers and students alike. So let's say our classroom norm that we want to reinforce is positive feedback. By embracing communication, we reinforce this because our students know that it's not just us working towards their success, but it's also their parents. So there's a team between the parents, the teachers, and the students to ensure that they are doing well. And we want this to become normal within our classrooms because we want it to be a way of managing our classrooms. Students who know that teachers communicate with the parents are less likely to misbehave. They'll do better with staying on task and participating accordingly while they're in the classroom if they know that the teacher is in contact with the parent. As a source of positive reinforcement and feedback, when our students are doing well, we want to brag about it and we want to share it and let the families know what's going on, as well as when we want to let families know when things are going well, in addition to when things might not be. So we don't want to only call home as a way of letting parents know when a grade is dropping or if a student is misbehaving. We want to embrace positive feedback as well. So if students are doing a good job, we're calling home and we're bragging about them, saying, hey, during this week, Your student, they did so great. They were participating, they were helping their classmates, they were a real classroom leader, and in addition to doing so, they got an A on their vocabulary quiz at the end of the week. That positive communication reinforces good behavior in the classroom because it lets the students know, hey, I'm also getting feedback when I'm good, as well as if I do something and I mess up a little. That communication helps to reinforce your classroom norms, and it also helps to build relationships between yourself as the teacher, the student, and the parent.
We would like to thank you all for listening today and learning how you can strengthen your parent communication skills during your first year as a teacher. Our topic for next week's episode will be collaborating with colleagues, where you will learn more about the importance of collaborating with everyone, from other teachers in the building to administrators. Please visit our website and ask us any questions under the Connect tab, and tune in next week to see if your question is answered.
Thanks again for participating in another wonderful show for Operation PD. Remember, we are your information source for professional development tools and resources for first-year teachers. Stay tuned for our next episode. Like, share, and subscribe to our podcast. Can't wait to hear from you later.